Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we're bringing you a romantic love story with a twist of fate and a whole lot of unexpected emotion. Before we dive into this wild and beautiful ride, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss one of our meaningful stories that touch the soul. Jennifer Vale woke with a head so heavy it felt like someone had stuffed her skull with cotton balls and fog. Early morning light slipped through thin floral curtains, casting golden streaks across the worn wooden floor. The soft sound of birds chirping outside contrasted heavily with the disorientation churning in her stomach. She blinked slowly, her mind foggy, trying to place where she was. This wasn't her apartment, her compact, noisy city home where blaring horns were her usual alarm clock. This place was quiet, too quiet, cozy. A faint scent of pine lingered in the air, mixed with something else. Something wrong. She sat up abruptly, the blanket sliding off her, and her heart nearly stopped. Beside her on a double bed covered in a soft blue wool blanket lay a man. He was sleeping soundly on his side, dark hair tousled and falling messily over his forehead, his breathing slow and even. Jennifer's first instinct was to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she let out a sharp hiss through her teeth and clenched the blanket closer to her chest. What the actual hell? She checked herself quickly. Cotton pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt, the same sleepwear she remembered putting on the night before. No signs of anything. Scandalous, at least not on her end. The man beside her was also fully dressed in a gray pajama set, button-up top and long pants, looking like someone who had gone to bed expecting to sleep, not party. But that didn't make this any less weird. Jennifer slowly eased out of bed, her mind spinning as she tried to recall the night before. She had come to Willow Creek to escape, just a short getaway from the chaos of her advertising job in the city. A rustic homestay listed as cozy, quiet, and nature-surrounded sounded like the perfect reset. She had arrived unpacked and remembered being invited to a local wine festival. Just a few drinks to unwind. She hadn't planned on getting drunk, but between the warm cider, the festive lanterns, and the charming locals, things had quickly gone fuzzy. And now she was here, in bed, with a stranger. A soft sound interrupted her frantic thoughts. The man stirred, groaning slightly as he blinked and opened his eyes. Deep brown, sharp, awake and aware within seconds. He sat up slowly, stretching with an ease that made her want to throw a pillow at him. His gaze swept the room like he was scanning for anomalies. Then those sharp eyes locked onto hers. "Good morning," he said in a calm, even tone that made her want to scream just to disrupt it. "Who are you, and why are we in the same bed?" she demanded, clutching the blanket. He blinked. "Who am I? Who are you? This is my booked room." Jennifer's jaw dropped. "Your room? I booked this place through the app 2 weeks ago." He frowned and stood, tall and lean, moving toward a duffel bag in the corner. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. "Huh. Room mix-up. Fantastic." Jennifer ran her fingers through her tangled hair. "So what? We just coincidentally shared a bed like it's no big deal?" "Apparently, but nothing happened," he said flatly. "Not my style to do anything with strangers while intoxicated. And no offense, but you're not really my type." Jennifer blinked, mouth open. "Excuse me? You heard me. Good, because you're definitely not my type either." But her defiance faltered when her eyes caught something glinting on the small wooden table near the window, a silver ring, and beside it, a folded piece of paper. Her gut twisted. Moving quickly, she snatched up the paper and unfolded it. The handwriting was messy, but the bolded title made her knees go weak. "Marriage certificate. Number no," she muttered, backing away from the document like it was a live grenade. Elliot, she learned his name from the paper, stepped closer and took it from her hands. His face remained stoic, but she noticed the subtle tightening of his jaw. "This is real," he said. "That's seals from the town clerk's office. I've seen it before." Jennifer shook her head. "I didn't sign this. I don't even know you." "I didn't ask for this either," Elliot said, setting the paper down. Clearly we were set up, or drunk, or both. Jennifer's mind raced. She remembered the festival. A cheerful old woman had insisted she sign a guest book as part of a festival tradition. Jennifer, tipsy and giggling, hadn't even read it. She said something about eternal love, she whispered. Oh my God, that's what this was? Elliot nodded. I signed something too. A guy in a vintage tux handed me a quill and said it was all for fun. This was not fun. Jennifer stared at the ring, lying there so innocently. She picked it up. It was smooth, unadorned, and it fit her perfectly. A chill ran down her spine. She threw it back onto the table. We're undoing this, immediately. I'll call my lawyer, but don't tell anyone, Elliot said. I can't afford a scandal right now. Scandal? What do you do? Doesn't matter. He began packing his bag. Meet me at the town office Monday. We'll fix it. Jennifer didn't want to look at him anymore. She gathered her belongings and left, pausing only once to glance at the ring again. But she left it there. Better to forget. Better to pretend it had never happened. Driving back to the city, she tried to focus on her upcoming week. A huge meeting with Kane Capital loomed, the company that was about to acquire Brightwave Advertising. She had to be ready. No distractions, no uninvited husbands. But her mind wouldn't let go of Elliot Grayson's face, and fate wasn't done with them yet. Jennifer Vale walked into the Brightwave offices with the kind of energy you only get after surviving a whirlwind weekend. Her head was pounding with tension. She tried to focus. Today was huge. Kane Capital was visiting. She was the head of marketing. She needed to bring her A-game. The meeting room was already half full when she arrived. People chattered nervously. She set up her slides, checked the numbers twice. Her fingers trembled slightly. Jen, you look like you've seen a ghost, Lena whispered, sliding in beside her with a smirk. How was the romantic cabin escape? Fall in love with a lumberjack? Jennifer's heart skipped. What? Number nothing like that. Just wine and books. Very boring. Lena gave her a look. You are lying. I know that voice. Jennifer was saved by the door opening. Mr. Carson, their director, stepped in, flanked by men and women in sleek suits. Today we welcome Kane Capital, Carson said, beaming. Please meet their CEO, Mr. Elliot Grayson. Jennifer's heart stopped. The room spun. She looked up and saw him. Elliot Grayson, in a navy suit, calm, confident, charismatic. And now, her husband. He looked right at her and smiled. Pleasure to meet you all, he said smoothly, and especially nice to see some of you again. His eyes locked on Jennifer. The game had just begun. Jennifer Vale had prepared for this meeting for over 2 weeks. Every slide, every metric, every prediction, rehearsed, revised, and perfected. The campaign her team crafted wasn't just a project. It was a statement, a chance to shine in front of Kane Capital, one of the most powerful investors on the East Coast. But none of her meticulous preparation could have readied her for this. Not for him. Not for the man who walked in with the commanding air of a king, the tailored suit of a Wall Street conqueror, and the same maddeningly familiar eyes that haunted her ever since that one drunken, hazy night in Willow Creek. Her face burned. It wasn't the blush of someone caught unprepared. It was the sting of recognition, hot, prickly, and impossible to hide. Jennifer gripped the table's edge as if anchoring herself in place. Her knuckles whitened. A neutral expression was her only shield, but inside she was a storm of panic and embarrassment. What was he doing? Why was he here? Of all places, today, in this meeting. Was this deliberate? Was he taunting her? Beside her, Lena nudged her with a sly grin, oblivious to the whirlwind just beneath Jennifer's professional armor. Hey, Lena whispered, leaning in, her voice laced with teasing curiosity. Do you know him? Why is your face so red? That guy's hotter than the sun, and he just keeps looking over here. Jennifer stiffened. She could barely form words. Don't know him, she whispered, voice clipped, dry. Just hot in here. Lena raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. Jennifer avoided her gaze, staring down at her notepad. She pretended to take notes, scribbling something, anything, but the pen trembled in her fingers. The neat, practiced handwriting of a seasoned marketer now looked like the frantic scrawl of a nervous schoolgirl. The meeting began. Mr. Carson, Brightwave's silver-haired founder and ever-charismatic showman, introduced the partnership proposal with practiced enthusiasm. The air in the room was heavy with expectation. Elliot Grayson, CEO of Kane Capital, sat near the head of the table, his presence like a storm cloud wrapped in Armani. Occasionally, he asked pointed questions, his voice cool, sharp, authoritative. Every time he spoke, Jennifer felt it, like a flicker of heat on her skin. His eyes always seemed to flick toward her, sometimes for a second, sometimes longer, teasing, probing, knowing. Then it was her turn. She rose from her seat with a breath she hoped no one noticed. Her legs felt like glass beneath her. She adjusted the projector, clicked to the opening slide of her pitch. Words flowed from her lips, steady at first. Her campaign pitch was sharp. Target demographics, emotional storytelling, branding strategy, all rehearsed, all delivered with poise. Or so she thought, because Elliot's gaze was still there. Not overt, not scandalous, but present, watching, measuring, and something about the way he looked at her made her want to disappear or scream. Then just as she was about to finish her closing point, he interrupted. "Miss Vale," Elliot said, his voice laced with something not quite sarcasm, but certainly more than curiosity. "Your idea is impressive, but I'm curious. Do you think this campaign can build lasting connections with customers? A sustainable relationship, say?" The word sustainable hung in the air like a trigger. Jennifer almost choked. Of all words to use, sustainable. A word that, in a vacuum, meant continuity, longevity. In their case, it meant something else entirely. That damn paper, that legally binding document, the one she'd barely remembered signing, the one that tied them together in the most absurd, unromantic, legally horrifying way possible. She forced a smile, a professional smile, a smile that said, "I will not let you get to me." "Mr. Grayson," she replied smoothly, "I believe true connection only comes from clarity, from no misunderstandings, right from the start." His lips twitched, the ghost of a smile. He leaned back slightly, eyes glinting. "Well said," he murmured, only she could hear. "I look forward to seeing you prove it." The rest of the meeting passed in a fog. Words were spoken, questions asked, deals discussed. But Jennifer barely registered any of it. Her mind was spinning. Her palms were damp. Her heart hadn't slowed once since the moment he'd walked in. When it was finally over, people began to stand, stretch, collect their things. Lena grabbed Jennifer's arm, yanking her from the edge of her seat. "Seriously, Jennifer, what is going on?" Lena asked in a stage whisper, eyes wide and sparkling with gossip. "You're telling me there's nothing between you and that super hot CEO? Because the way he was looking at you, it's like he's known you forever." Jennifer forced a laugh. "You watch too many movies." But inside, panic churned. Because Elliot Grayson wasn't a stranger. He wasn't even just a fling. He was the man she'd accidentally married. And worse, he was now the man with power over her company's future. She waited, bided her time as the boardroom slowly emptied. When there were only a few stragglers left, she slipped out, heart pounding. She found him in the hallway, speaking with Mr. Carson. The two men were deep in discussion, but the moment Carson turned to leave, she pounced. "Mr. Grayson," she said sharply, "we need to talk. Now." He turned slowly, unsurprised. His mouth curled into that same infuriatingly calm smile. "Miss Vale," he greeted her, as if they hadn't just stared each other down in a war of words and glances. "I'm guessing this isn't about the ad campaign, is it?" She glared at him, arms crossed, shoulders rigid. "Cut the jokes. You know what I mean. That paper. We need to cancel it. Immediately. Today." He tilted his head, pretending to think. "That paper," he repeated as if the phrase amused him. "Are you sure we should rush something so important? These matters, well, they're more complicated than you think." "Complicated how?" she snapped. Then as a colleague passed by, she dropped her voice. "We made a mistake. We were drunk. None of it's real. Sign the annulment and we're done." He stepped closer, too close. She could smell his cologne. Woody, clean, unsettling. Jennifer, he said, and the sound of her name in his voice startled her. I'm not signing anything. Not until I'm sure. She blinked. Sure of what? He didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. Really looked. Then his lips curved again. If you want to make a scene, go ahead. But I'd advise keeping this quiet, for both our sakes. Her heart thundered. Is that a threat? No, he replied, his voice silky. Just advice. He leaned in slightly, his breath brushing her ear. We'll be seeing a lot of each other, Miss Vale. I look forward to it. And then just like that, he walked away. Jennifer stood there, frozen, heart in her throat, anger swelling, and beneath it all, a strange, maddening flutter of something she didn't want to name. She'd almost left it behind again that morning, but at the last second, without understanding why, she'd slipped it into her bag. Maybe it was superstition, maybe self-sabotage, or maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to lose something tied to the strangest, most thrilling, most maddening man she'd ever met. Elliot was already at the airport lounge when she arrived. He looked up from his laptop, his suit navy today, sharp against the soft leather of the chair. Morning, Mrs. Grayson, he said with that smirk, the one that made her want to throw something heavy and also maybe lean in closer. She rolled her eyes and sat across from him, setting her bag down a little harder than necessary. We are not doing that today. It's business, just business. His brow arched playfully. Of course, though I should warn you, business class seating on this flight is cozy. Jennifer groaned, already regretting every life choice that had led her to this point. On the plane, they were indeed side by side, two strangers with a shared secret, a fake marriage, and a growing stack of unspoken things between them. She pretended to read, on eyes skimming the same paragraph of a marketing book over and over. Elliot, meanwhile, typed something into his laptop, his focus intense, until he paused and looked at her. You're wearing green, he said. She blinked. So? You wore green the night we got married, he said casually, not looking at her now, but the air between them snapped taut. Jennifer turned to him slowly. How do you even remember that? His mouth twitched. I remember a lot from that night. She swallowed hard and turned away, staring at the clouds outside the window like they had answers. Seattle greeted them with soft rain and thick city energy. The meeting was held in a high-rise overlooking Elliott Bay. Jennifer took the lead, presenting the campaign with calm confidence, keeping her voice even and her gaze away from Elliot unless absolutely necessary. But even then, every time he nodded in agreement, every time he added a point that built smoothly off hers, she felt it, a strange rhythm, like they were dancing a duet they didn't realize they knew. Afterward, the client shook their hands enthusiastically, the meeting a success. As they walked out of the boardroom and toward the elevator, Elliot turned to her. You were good today, Jennifer frowned. I'm always good. No, he said, his voice softer. Today, you were great. The elevator doors opened. They stepped inside, and for the first few floors, silence hung heavy. Then Elliot asked, so casually it hurt, Why do you still carry the ring? Her breath caught. I don't, she lied. He looked down at her bag. You do. Jennifer's fingers tightened around the handle. It's none of your business. He nodded, not pushing, just watching her like he was trying to read the story written behind her eyes. The elevator dinged and the moment broke. Later, as she lay in her hotel bed staring at the ceiling, she reached into her bag and pulled the ring out again. She should have thrown it away. But she didn't, because deep down, she wasn't sure she wanted the marriage over just yet. The one she'd found in her bag last week glinted again, tucked in a small pocket. She'd meant to leave it at home, but somehow she slipped it into her bag like a reminder of her biggest mistake. Elliot was already waiting at the airport gate, tall in a white shirt and gray vest, looking like he'd just stepped out of a fashion magazine. Miss Vale, he greeted, voice low but teasing. Hope you're ready to impress. Jennifer forced a stiff smile, pulling her suitcase closer. I'm always ready, Mr. Grayson. Are you? He raised an eyebrow, eyes twinkling. Oh, I was born for this. He gestured for her to join him, and together they moved through security, beginning a day Jennifer already knew wouldn't be easy. The flight was short, but to Jennifer, it felt like an eternity. She sat beside Elliot, trying to focus on documents while he read a business book, occasionally jotting notes with a pencil. Once, during mild turbulence, his hand brushed against hers on the shared armrest. She flinched, glancing at him, but he simply gave a faint smile and kept reading, as if nothing happened. "Relax, Jennifer," he said without looking up. "You're too tense." "I'm not tense," she snapped, but her shaky voice betrayed her. Things seemed manageable, until they reached the hotel in Seattle. Jennifer stood at the front desk, exhausted from the flight and their initial client meeting. She handed over her booking card, eager to crash before tomorrow's big presentation. But after a few moments of typing, the receptionist looked up with an awkward smile. "Sorry, Miss Vale. There seems to be a mix-up. We only have one room booked for both of you. A double, but, with one bed." Jennifer felt the blood drain from her face. "One bed?" she echoed, nearly shouting. People turned to look. She glanced at Elliot, standing calmly beside her, expression unchanged. "No, no, no. This is a mistake. We need two separate rooms." Elliot placed a hand on the counter, his voice even. "I'm certain I booked two rooms. Could you check again?" The receptionist typed quickly, then shook her head apologetically. "I'm so sorry, there was a system error, and the hotel is fully booked due to the conference. We can arrange a rollaway bed, but it'll take a few hours." Jennifer clutched her head. Fate was clearly laughing at her. Again. Stuck with Elliot Grayson. Again. "Great," she muttered. "Willow Creek all over again." Elliot looked at her, a spark of amusement in his eyes. "Don't worry, Miss Vale. I'll take the sofa. We just need to get through tonight." She wanted to argue, but exhaustion won. She nodded, took the room key, and together they headed upstairs. The room wasn't bad, spacious with a window overlooking the glittering city lights. But the king-size bed at its center was an undeniable reminder of the unfortunate situation. Jennifer tossed her bag onto a chair and turned to Elliot. "You're taking the sofa, right?" He nodded, already slipping off his vest and hanging it neatly. "Right, I'm a gentleman." But his eyes glinted like he was trying not to laugh. While waiting for the rollaway bed, they sat at a small table, reviewing presentation materials. The tension slowly began to ease. Jennifer was surprised. Elliot wasn't just smart, he had genuine insight into the client's preferences. He suggested adding a storytelling video. It fit perfectly into her concept. "Have you done advertising before?" she asked, unable to hide her curiosity. Elliot chuckled, a real unguarded laugh. "Number. But I like good stories." He looked at her, not smirking this time. "And you, Jennifer? You tell them well." She blushed, eyes dropping to her papers to hide it. They kept talking, drifting into memories not marked on business charts. She told him about a college presentation flop that had the entire class laughing. He answered with a tale of getting lost in the woods after trusting a faulty GPS. "So, you're not as perfect as you look," she blurted, then bit her lip. Elliot tilted his head, gaze soft. "Nobody's perfect, Jennifer. But if we were really married..." He paused, holding her eyes. "What would you want from me?" The question stunned her. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. What do you mean?" she stammered. He shrugged as if it was just a random thought. "Just curious. If it wasn't a mistake, if it was real, what would you expect?" She stared at him, searching his face for mockery. But there was none, only a quiet sincerity. I don't know," she said softly. "Maybe honesty and someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm walking a tightrope." He nodded slowly. "I'll keep that in mind." The next morning, the presentation took place in a sleek boardroom at the food conglomerate's headquarters. Jennifer stood before the clients, doing her best to stay composed. But when the slides shifted to data analysis, she blanked. Her mind emptied. Panic clawed at her, dragging up memories of that college disaster. Her hands trembled. Elliot, seated beside her, noticed immediately. He stood, voice calm. "Ms. Vale prepared a detailed analysis," he said smoothly. "Let me clarify. The figure we're discussing is a 15% projected growth, correct?" He turned to her, his gaze steady. Jennifer inhaled, grounding herself. "Yes. Thank you, Mr. Grayson." She picked up from there, stronger, steadier. And by the end, the room echoed with applause. Outside the meeting room, she turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. Thank you. I almost ruined everything. He smiled, warm, without irony. Everyone gets nervous. You did great, Jennifer. Her heart thudded at the sound of you. Not Ms. Vale. Just Jennifer. Back at the airport, as she packed her things, her gaze drifted to the silver ring in her bag. She didn't hate Elliot anymore. That much she knew. But as their eyes met across the terminal, something inside her whispered louder than reason. You can't like him, Jennifer. You can't. But her heart wasn't listening. She walked into Brightwave's office the next morning feeling different, confused, off balance. She tried to shake it off, immersing herself in feedback from the Seattle campaign. But her mind kept drifting. Back to the hotel, the way he stood up for her, the question, if it was real, what would you expect? Lena pounced as usual, coffee in hand and gossip already spilling. Did you hear the news? She whispered, eyes alight. A new partner's arriving today, from Nexus Media. Word is, drop-dead gorgeous and somehow tied to Grayson. Drama's about to explode. Jennifer tried to act uninterested. That's got nothing to do with me, Lena. I'm busy. But something in her gut twisted. The meeting was set for noon in the glass-walled conference room. Jennifer arrived early, prepping documents and steeling her nerves. Kane Capital's team entered soon after. Elliot walked in. No vest today, just a dark blue shirt. Relaxed, in control. He nodded at her briefly, a flicker of warmth in his gaze. She quickly looked away. Then the door opened again. A woman walked in, tall, statuesque, with sleek blonde hair and piercing green eyes. Her red dress was the kind you didn't forget. Lena whistled beside her. Wow, straight out of a movie. Mr. Carson stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to welcome Ms. Alice Monroe from Nexus Media. She'll be joining the campaign as our new partner, working closely with Kane Capital and Brightwave. Alice smiled. Polished, perfect. But when her eyes met Elliot's, they lingered a second too long. Jennifer saw it, and for the first time, saw something flicker in him too. Not warmth, not attraction, tension. The meeting began, but Jennifer could barely focus. Alice spoke smoothly, confidently, with all the poise of someone who belonged in front of cameras. But she kept glancing at Elliot, like she was silently daring him to react. He didn't, not once, and yet something was off. Afterward, as people filtered out, Alice walked straight to Jennifer. You're Jennifer Vale, right? Her voice was sweet but edged in ice. I've heard of you. Brightwave's rising star. She paused, smile sharp. Elliot's mentioned you a few times. Jennifer blinked. Did she just? Right, she said quietly, trying to keep her face unreadable. But her heart was thudding, and deep down, she knew. This wasn't just business anymore. Jennifer followed him wordlessly into his office, the weight of 1,000 eyes crawling over her skin. Once the door clicked shut, she turned to face him, arms crossed in defense. This is spiraling, she said, her voice sharp but strained. Everyone's looking at me like I'm your dirty little secret. Elliot ran a hand through his hair, frustration lining his face. I didn't leak it, Jennifer. You know I wouldn't do that. But someone did, she snapped. And now my entire career, my reputation, is being dragged through coffee room gossip like a midday soap opera. His jaw clenched. I'm fixing it. Jennifer let out a bitter laugh. With what? A press release saying, oops, we got married by accident. Please ignore our faces in that photo. I'm serious, he said, stepping closer. This wasn't what I planned, but I'm not going to let them chew you up for something that was my fault. Her breath caught. So you're admitting it's a fault now? Elliot sighed, his gaze softening. I'm admitting it happened, and maybe I didn't fight it the way I should have, because I didn't want to. The confession sat between them, crackling like static. Jennifer's anger dulled, confusion taking its place. Then what now, Elliot? The world knows something we've been trying to ignore. What happens next? He stepped even closer, eyes searching hers. You tell me. Jennifer blinked. Her heart pounded against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She wanted clarity, closure, control. But the truth was, when she looked at Elliot, none of those things existed. Only chaos, and the maddening possibility that it wasn't all bad. "I don't know what to tell you," she whispered. "I'm still figuring out what's real." Elliot nodded. "Then let's figure it out together. Not for PR, not for damage control. For us." For a beat, she didn't speak. Then quietly, "That sounds dangerously like a relationship." A hint of a smile ghosted across his lips. "Maybe it is." She looked away, emotions swimming too close to the surface. "I still need time." He didn't push. "Take all you need. I'm not going anywhere." And somehow that scared her even more than if he had. To stay calm, going public now would only make it worse. Jennifer clenched her fists, feeling trapped. Calm? Everyone's staring at me like I'm in some trashy movie. I can't work like this. Elliot stepped closer, his eyes full of concern. "Jennifer, I'll fix this. Just trust me." But her trust was crumbling. She returned to her desk, hearing whispers from colleagues. One even asked outright, "Jennifer, what's the deal with you and Grayson? Did you really get married?" She forced a smile, but inside she felt like she was falling apart. That evening, her mom called again, voice heavy with reproach. "Jennifer, if you got married, why didn't you tell me? You know how serious marriage is." Jennifer tried to explain, but each word reminded her of the pain from her parents' divorce. She feared repeating their mistakes. She decided to act. She wrote a resignation letter and placed it on Mr. Carson's desk. The next morning, when Elliot found out, he called her to his office. "Jennifer, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice tense. She took a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "I don't want to be a burden, Elliot. If I stay, the rumors won't stop. Let me go." Elliot looked at her, his eyes filled with pain, as if she'd stabbed him. "You think leaving will fix this?" he asked, voice hoarse. "You're not a burden, Jennifer. You're—" He stopped, unable to finish. Jennifer turned away, tears welling up. "I'm sorry," she whispered, leaving the office. As she walked out, Elliot's pained look burned into her memory, but she told herself this was her only choice. Jennifer Vale sat on the sofa in her small apartment, staring at the white envelope on the coffee table. It had arrived that morning with no sender's name, but the firm handwriting spelling Jennifer Vale told her instantly who it was from. Her heart pounded as she opened it, pulling out a single sheet, an annulment request. Her name and Elliot Grayson's sat side by side, a reminder of the strange mistake that started it all. But what stopped her cold was a small folded note attached. "If you sign, I'll sign, but if you come back, I'll wait." She read it over and over, her fingers trembling. Elliot's message was brief, but each word carved into her heart. A week had passed since she resigned from Brightwave. She tried to avoid thinking about him, about the pain in his eyes as she left his office, about how he called her Jennifer instead of Miss Vale in that final moment. But now this annulment form felt like a challenge. She could end it all, or face what scared her most, her own heart. Jennifer stood, pacing the room. She needed space, needed to think. She grabbed her phone, checked her email, and a sudden idea struck. The Willow Creek Home, where it all began. Maybe returning there would give her answers. She booked a room, double-checking to ensure no mix-ups this time, and drove to the mountains, her mind a tangle of emotions. When she arrived in the late afternoon, golden sunlight filtered through the trees, lighting up the front garden. The home was just as she remembered, a rustic wooden house, a porch draped in vines, and a small garden bursting with wildflowers. The scent of fresh-cut grass and faint wood lingered in the air, making her smile fleetingly. The owner, an older woman with a kind grin, greeted her like an old friend. "Welcome back, dear," she said, handing over the room key. "No wine festival this time, so you're safe." Jennifer gave a strange smile.